Hey LeGrand Alive, welcome to the Second Pot, the show where Coffee with Will guests come back for a second round of suffering. I'm Will Bowman and I'm here today with Jason Link, who is a local pastor as well as a writer and art enthusiast. And he is here today to talk with me a little bit about some of the things that he's got going on right now, as well as art and faith and how they fit together. So this episode was brought to you by Grand Ron Hospital, Northwest Furniture and Mattress, Anything 2 Digital, EONI, and Med Transport. Jason, thank you so much for joining me here today. Jason is a wonderful human being who is also a good writer, and he is very passionate about art and faith and how they sort of intersect, both historically and today in the present. So now we're going to talk about all that, but that's not the first thing we're going to do today, because as you know, LeGrand Alive, the first thing we always do on the Second Pot is we play a game. Now, I have promised Jason that I cannot embarrass him, right, but in keeping with the theme of today's episode, we are going to be playing a game of art and faith trivia, and we're gonna chat. We're gonna test Jason's esoteric art knowledge in relation to the Bible and all the sorts of weird art thingies that may or may not be in the Bible here and there. So, are you ready for this?
I hope so.
Okay. So before we get started, we have to start the timer. So if you will do me the honors of taking that and pouring into right there, will get this. We'll get our timer going. Oh yeah, there you go. That's the good stuff right there.
Okay.
There we go. A little bit more.
There we go.
All right, put her down there. We're gonna close it up and working. Yep, it is working. All right, excellent. So this is gonna get going, and we are going to get started. So,
question number one.
Now, question number one. Now they are multiple choice questions. So you have between 4 and 7 options for each one.
Okay.
But most of them are 4, so don't be too terrified. Oh, there we go. So we got our coffee is a brewing. So we'll start out with, ironically, the question that you prognosticated was going to be on this list. So question number 1. What was the name of the 2 craftsmen assigned to make gold and silver trappings of the Old Testament tabernacle? So, option number 1, Sinam and Miriam. Option number 2, Oholiab and Bezalel. Option number 3, Jezebel and Michael.
Okay.
And option D, Simon and Garfunkel.
It's the second one.
It's the second one?
Yes.
Are you sure about that?
I can't remember their names off the top of my head, but that's
that's the second one.
Those are the 2. Yeah, those 2.
Well, you are already performing better than you think you did, because that is correct. You got it. That option number 2 is correct. That answer is Oholiab and Bezalel. They were the 2 craftsmen who were assigned to make the table and the lampstand and all the weird things that nobody understands reading from another culture.
I'm sure somebody does.
Well, somebody who's a lot smarter than we are.
Yes, yes, I'm sure, yes.
All right, question number 2. So, complete the verse in the ESV, which is the English Standard Version, which I'm sure that you probably know. That's the only reason I do this, because that's the one that I was reading.
Okay.
All right, so A, sing to the Lord a new song. Sing to the Lord all the earth. Or is it B, write to the Lord a new verse. Write to the Lord all the land. Is it option C, sing to the Lord a new praise. Sing to the Lord all the saints. Or D, hum to the Lord a new tune. Hum to the Lord all the farmers.
Sing to the Lord a new song.
Man, are you sure about that? Do you want to take some time to think about it?
No.
Jeez, man, you're making my questions look bad. That is correct. Option number A. You got it. All right. So now we're gonna. Well, geez. You're probably gonna get this one pretty quick too. All right. Okay. So, question number 3.
Okay.
In Genesis 19, Lot's wife was turned to a pillar of what?
Salt.
You can't do that. You have to let me read my answers. That's half the fun.
Okay, read
Lot's wife was turned to a pillar of what when she looked back on her old home? Option A, was it salt? Option B, was it marble? Option C, was it stone? Option D, was it synthetic polymer?
That'd have been pretty funny. Because you could hold her up. You could hold stuff up. No, but it's salt.
Did you say you could use it for all things up?
Yeah, you could.
See, that's so funny. If you wouldn't have let me really. Are you sure? Option A. Is that your
Everybody
final
knows
answer?
it's salt.
Okay,
Everybody
option
knows
A,
it's
you
salt.
are correct.
Yes.
All right, here you go. There we go.
All right.
All right, so now we're gonna get into some actual
stuff.
serious
Okay.
questions here. Question number 4. In Daniel 5, what did the writing on the wall say? Option A, is it tepe, tepe, malel, hersen? B, ni si ka lu si na e? C, mene mene tekel parsen? Option D, for a good time, call 554-854-9931.
I think it's the Mene Tech.
You can't, what are you doing? Get out of here.
It's the third option.
Option C, which
Option
is
C.
mene mene tekel parsen.
Yes, I believe that's it.
Sure about that?
I'm sure.
Well, you are correct.
Yes.
Man, you are 4 for 4. You must be like a pastor or something like that.
Something.
All right. How we doing on here? All right, we got about
Oh.
2 of them. We got about 2 more left.
Okay.
But we are cooking along.
Okay.
All right. So, question 5. Pick the 5 elements that made up the statue of Nebuchadnezzar's dream in Daniel 2.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just going to list them out and you have to pick 5.
Okay.
1 is gold, 2, silver, C, bronze, like I switched there,
Yeah.
D, iron, E, clay, F, marble, or G, jello.
Well, okay, so the head was gold, the body was silver, the legs were either iron or bronze, and the feet were clay. So it's gold, silver, let's say iron and clay.
That's 4. You got to pick one more. There's one more.
Oh, but then we'll include the bronze, right? Are those the options?
Well, there's gold, silver,
Right.
bronze, iron, clay, marble, and jello.
Well, it's not marble or jello, so it must be the other
Really?
five.
Jello?
Yeah.
That Jello is a pretty legitimate option. I mean,
Well, the whole objective
gotta make
is
the
like,
tongue out of something.
well, the idea was that this statue was built on something, unsturdy. So I guess it could have been jello if
Yeah.
it had been,
If it had
that
been
existed back then.
2019.
That would have been a good illustration. Yeah. You could like if you were doing a lesson to youth, you could say this statue was standing on jello. But
This is
come
not.
on, man. This
This isn't a
isn't-
2018 youth conference.
yes. So it's not. Yeah, the marble. That marble is the one that might be tricky for. But yeah, it's not marble.
All right. Well, you are correct. That is correct.
Yes.
It is gold, silver, bronze, iron, and clay. All right.
Right.
So we got one more, I
Ooh,
think, here.
okay.
So, and I've gotta pick which one that I want to do because I got 2 more questions on here.
Okay.
But actually, I think. Well, no, we got a little bit. We'll do one more. All right.
One more.
Last question. In 1 Corinthians, Paul orders the believers to worship in what? Option A, purity, not unrighteousness. Option B, faith, not doubt. C, peace, not confusion. Or D, classical, dear God, not pop or rap music.
All right. What's that first option again?
Purity, not unrighteousness.
We'll go with that one. I could be wrong though because is it wrong? Is it wrong? Is it A?
Is it your final answer?
That's my final answer.
Well, you're wrong.
Oh wow! Okay.
Wow, good job.
Wow.
Well, you know what? That's okay though. You still got 5 out of 6 on Bible art trivia. Ding, 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 ding. You win. Good
Thank you.
job, Jason Link. That was a pretty. I was pretty impressed with how quickly you got some of those earlier ones.
But everybody knows it's pillar of salt. That's like a.
Yeah, but not everyone knows Holiab and Bezalel.
Wow.
That's a pretty esoteric Bible art
Well,
thing
everybody,
there.
well, Jezebel's a pretty
Yeah,
notorious
that one.
character, so
I threw that one in there to make
Yeah.
it a little easier. All right. So
Okay.
our timer is done.
Cool.
And before we pour the coffee and get into conversation, we're going to go out and take just a quick look at a couple of clips from Jason's Coffee with Will, in which he talked a little bit about his how he interacts with art and faith and his previous book project.
You write who you are. I am not a writer of Christian fiction. I am a Christian who writes fiction, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely.
The person I am and the Jesus I follow shapes what I write. But are you going to hear a gospel message, like an explicit gospel message? You're not. But the themes in my life, the God I worship, the God I love, and the God I follow, He has definitely affected what I've written.
Sure.
I tell a story of, if you want to make it an analogy of anything, it's the story of perhaps a person who follows a crucified Lord. And what does that mean to follow that crucified Lord? What is your identity, and what are you willing to sacrifice in order to get to that identity? But I don't mention anything explicitly, like from the Bible in my book. And yet it was interesting. I received a fan letter from a missionary in, I want to say Zimbabwe. I want to say the southern part of Africa. And he told me that even though the gospel message isn't like in your face obvious, in fact, it's not even, it's very, 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 very subtle. He said, I could see the gospel themes in there.
So that was Coffee with Will and Jason Link. That was probably about what, a year and a half ago that we
Probably,
did that?
yeah, a year and a half ago.
It was a good solid time. So today we're going to talk a little bit about faith and art and something that Jason has been working on. But first we need to pour the coffee.
Oh, yes.
We need coffee for any good discussion to happen at La Grande Alive. That's just something that has to happen. So Jason, tell me a little bit, what you got going on? Like what's coming up here that's kind of a cool thing that has to do with art and faith?
Well, on October 13th, we're going to have the Art and Faith Festival. And it's going to be happening at the Marketplace Underground, where Baby Cakes is, and the Grand Lumiere. And
Thai Fresh
yes,
and all that place.
it's going to be in that whole, like, upstairs, downstairs. It's going to kind of take up the two levels. And so we're going to have a gathering at 10 a.m. And that's going to last about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And then people are free to mill about. And there's going to be art in the gallery. There's going to be artists and writers and of all sorts setting up their booths.
But these are special artists. These are artists who are not just artists, but they're artists who integrate faith into their art in some way, shape, or form, right?
Well, they're people. I'd say they're people of faith who, because
Also produce art.
that produce art. Well, we also have this. You're asking a really.
So this is kind of what we were going to talk. This is the question.
This is the
You know,
question. What is this
how
about?
do
Yeah.
art and faith integrate? How do believers, people who are people of faith, integrate faith in their art? You know, so like, how does that happen? And is that the question that this seminar is asking?
Yes, and that's sort of what this festival is talking about, is because, you know, church used to be the great patron of the arts. I probably said that on Coffee with Will.
Probably, but
yeah.
that's okay. You can say it again.
I can say it again. Church used to be the great patron of the arts. Then something happened, and we're not anymore. In fact, there's a big lack of art being used in the church.
Yeah.
And that is what this festival is about. It's addressing that lack. And so
what do you mind? I mean, what was that? What, in your opinion, was that thing which caused art and faith, or art in the church, to kind of, you know, take different ways?
the quick and dirty answer, the short answer, and way too simple, but
The second pot answer.
The second pot answer would have to be the Reformation, kind of the separation between Catholicism and Protestantism. And if you notice, like, Catholicism has a lot of beautiful artwork still, or Eastern Orthodox churches are. You go into an Eastern Orthodox cathedral and it's just gorgeous, and it's covered with images and with art. And Catholic churches, they put a lot into their cathedrals, and they're beautiful.
Yeah.
But I think there was a lot of anti-Catholic sentiment during the split, and so you go to churches in Germany, and you'll find that they're old, but they're very austere. And I think this, like, if it looks Catholic, then it has to be, then we have to do away with it. And so there's a lot of this anti-Catholic sentiment towards art, which is really unfortunate.
So they kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yes, they
said,
did.
well, we don't like anything that's Catholic, and all these Catholics put a lot of effort into the arts. So maybe the arts is something that we don't want anything to do with.
And so, which is really unfortunate. It just furthers the divide between Protestants and Catholics. And I think we, as Protestants, we have a lot to learn from our Catholic brothers and sisters. Like looking, if we want to kind of bring back art to the church. There's also, you have this kind of with the anti-art, like this idea is we get rid of the smells, we got rid of the bells, we got rid of the art, we got rid of the icons, and so kind of like we were left with singing and sermons, and that's kind of what we have in church. Well, a lot of people, that's not their gifting, and maybe it's not gifting in teaching. They don't have a gifting in singing. They have a gift of painting, or they have a gift of woodworking or metal. But then again, dancing, or even, I mean. This is really this festival's call for all members of the body to be utilized, to be used, to have their gifts brought out. So I'm focusing on the artists, but really we need to have like accountants, doctors, we need to have people of all sorts of skills, construction workers who can come in and when they come into the church, they're like, I have a place here. So this festival is... it's not geared towards all the areas where the church lacks. It's gearing towards where the church is lacking in utilizing its artists. The church does have artists.
Sure.
As I've been putting on this festival and as I've been looking for people, I've been finding people everywhere. When I was in seminary, I was finding artists, in my classes and whatnot, and they were talking about their experiences. And as I've been, putting this festival together and talking to artists, they're like, "Yeah, we want a place in the church."
Yeah.
And so it sounds like this is a cry that doesn't get, or a need that doesn't get addressed very often.
Yeah. Well, and it's almost interesting because,
Almost interesting.
Well, it is interesting.
Okay.
It is interesting. It's interesting that for so long, artists have kind of had this almost sense of identity about them, that, they're wild-haired, they're dirty, they're crazy, they're lascivious generally, like they're sort of like the typical artist or right-brain thinker is oftentimes associated with this sort of wild living anti-church ideology. Whereas, when you look historically, some of the greatest artists that we have canonized, that's a whole other topic, but, they were people of the church. They were, they were not these, crazy people. I mean, they certainly are those crazy people.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not an unwarranted image, but like, it almost seems like by getting rid of the arts, we disenfranchised a group of individuals who have gifts and had things that they could contribute, and then they kind of said, well, if you guys don't want us, then we'll go do our own thing.
Yeah, and that's a shame. As members of the church, we like to affect culture, but when you kind of kick out your artists who are culture makers, if you kick them out or don't give a place for them, then you're kind of getting rid of that avenue in which you as a church can affect culture.
Interesting.
So that's also another avenue I'd like to go down, is like, because this festival is going to be geared towards artists, and I'm going to say, hey, you have a place in the church. I want you to know that you need to use your gifts, and there is a place, there should be a place for you. But it's also two-pronged. I'm talking to the artists, but I'm also going to be talking to churchgoers, people who are church leaders, and I'm going to say, hey, utilize your artists, please. As you said, I'm an artist. I'm a writer, and so there's been this battle, this unnecessary compartmentalizing of art over here, faith over here, and I don't know how they
connect.
I wasn't really taught how they connect. And so you kind of, as an artist in the church, you kind of have to use your creativity, not just to create content, writing or dancing, but you have to use your creativity to come up with your own place in the church. So you have to there's a lot of creativity involved in forming your own place.
Well, so I was going to say is so that kind of begs the question, which is a bad use of that term, but I'm going to use it. Okay. It kind of asks the question of, how do churches utilize their artists? And I know that there are a billion ways, but are there ways that you as a pastor have found to utilize art, or even to, incorporate artists in what you're doing?
Well, I think what you can do, there's lots of practical steps. We can start with those. One practical thing you can do is that you can find your artist first. I think that's the first thing to do. Be like, hey, how many people out there in the congregation are actually talented at doing something? And start taking notice. And maybe some people are brave enough to raise their hands, but also look at what people do. I'm sure there's tons of people who make quilts, who are really, really talented quilters. I'm serious.
I have a couple of those quilts, and they're great.
And it's you have those. You can have someone who's a painter, or someone who's, there's a lot of, metal worker or a sculptor. You find those people and you say, all right, and you talk to them. And you ask the question, how would you like to be involved in the church? And I think that question would just put a big smile on their face. How can you, because they're just waiting. I think I'm just going to pull a number out of the air. 95% of all artists you ask, how would you like to be involved in the church? They'll be like, I've been waiting for you to ask. I've been waiting because I don't know how. And then you have that conversation together.
Yeah.
Because each church is contextual and it serves a different, it has its own place in the community. And so you're going to have to figure out for your community and your church how your artists can be involved. Another practical step is there are acts of worship that you can do that are artistic, like drawing prayer or lectio divina. Drawing prayer is you don't have to be an artist. You just doodle on a paper while you pray. Another act, lectio divina, is where you sit and meditate on it. You listen to scripture and you meditate on it, and then you just focus on a certain word or phrase. And and you know what? We've been doing artistic things in the church all the time. Communion, the Eucharist, that's a artistic act. It's a physical act. It doesn't take a bunch of creativity. It doesn't take a bunch of talent, but it is, a reenactment of a supper.
It's almost like a little theater.
A little bit.
Like an acting, sort of remembering kind of thing. Telling a story.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of, so those are practical ways. I think the big important way is it feels a little bit like you're opening Pandora's box, but it's like getting artists into the leadership of your church and saying, all right, what do we need to do as a church? Well, it's no secret that our churches are getting older and they're getting smaller with time. And it's going to take creativity to figure out how to solve that issue of shrinking, aging churches. And who are your creative people? Who are your creative thinkers? Your artists. And so it might seem a little scary to ask that crazy haired...
all my artists stand up.
But that crazy artist guy who's sitting in your congregation who's got, crazy ideas, but hey, I'd really like to hear what you have to say about this. Not just invite them to perform, but actually invite them to help shape the way the church moves as a whole. So that's a little bit scarier because again, art and faith they're kind of like the open ocean. They're beautiful, but they're chaotic, and you can't control them, and so they're kind of intimidating, and so that's a step. Maybe if you're a leader in a church and you're trying to figure out where to begin, like, okay, first talk to your artists, maybe implement some artistic worship practices, and once you get comfortable with those, invite your artists into the leadership of how the think tank of your church, and help them direct how the church moves. So, is that clear?
Well, yeah,
Okay.
and it makes sense, but I think you've kind of hit it on the head there, in that there's a little bit of a fear of art, because art is at its nature sort of touching the chaotic nature of ourselves, and that's scary, because I think a lot of church is really focused on order and regimen, and the left brain of, this is how we live, these are our rules, these are our dogmas, these are the left brain, this is order, and so we could talk about that for hours and hours and hours if we had an art and faith podcast. I know there is one actually out there that probably has talked about this, but I guess for now on the second pot, I guess my question for you is, it might be scary to invite artists and those kinds of things, but why should people? What's at stake? What are these people going to bring to the church, that isn't otherwise there?
Well, like I said before, the artists, they're your culture makers. I mean, when you go, who are making movies? Artists. Who are making the music? Who's making music? Artists. I mean, who's doing advertisements? Artists. You are bombarded by art all the time, more than you probably know. And so to neglect artists is to say, we don't want a place in shaping culture. And I think as a church, there's a great book called Culture Making by Andy Crouch. And I'm going to kind of butcher what he said, but
that's all right. It's the second pot.
Okay.
We cannot be held accountable for anything that we butcher on this show. That's my disclaimer right there.
Is that at the church for a long time, it condemned culture. It took a stance of condemnation, and then it said, all right, well, if we can't beat them, at least we're gonna have culture around us. We might as well. And we're going to be in it. We can at least criticize it. We can criticize it, and then the criticism evolved into consuming. Well, we might as well consume it. We might as well take it in, and then it became copying. We might as well just copy popular culture,
which is why you turn on popular Christian radio and you have popular cultural songs that have been rewritten as Christian songs that are being played. Yeah.
And not that there's anything wrong with those stances. And again, I mean, I have critiques of each of those stances. But and I understand the reasoning for each of those stances, and I'm empathetic towards those reasoning. But Andy Crouch, in his book, he talks about how those stances aren't what the church is called to. The church is called to not condemn, just condemn, critique, copy, and consume. It's called to create. Yeah, and so we actually create culture. And if you get rid of your artists, you get rid of that's like cutting off your arm and trying to get into an arm wrestling contest. It's like you're cutting off your best players at trying to create new culture and influence and make the world better, as the church would say, help or work for the kingdom of God in the world. So
it's almost it's a difference between negating culture and like you said, there's culture, here is us, and redeeming culture, stepping into that thing which is being used for not good and using it for something which is good.
Right. So and that right there, this idea of redeeming, and I think we get this idea a lot of times in the church that, it's not Christian radio. It's not a Christian author. It must be bad. That's a lot of people who don't claim God or follow God. They are still creating beautiful artwork that's making an impact on people. You have and so that is actually, I'd say, even I dare to say, working for the kingdom of God. I think we are quick as a church to point a finger and say, and to, put up that wall. Again, it's that control thing.
Yeah.
We want to have control. We want to mark off our barriers. Okay, let's be careful not to cross that. And so we've gotten really good at that, which isn't good. And I mean, yes, everybody needs to have healthy boundaries, but
there's a balance. There's a balance to
exactly. It. And so, lost my train of thought. There
are so many tendrils
synapses going out there.
We could talk about this all day long. So,
yes.
and it's such an interesting subject, and I could sit down here and talk with you for hours about it.
Yes.
But we need to wrap it up. So, last thing, really quickly, I want you to look at the camera, and maybe there's someone out there who wants to be a creator, but also wants to be a person of faith. Mm-hmm. How are just 2 things that they can do to join those 2 things together in your experience as being someone who's like that?
Okay. 2 things. One, I would say that yes, there is a place for you in following God and using your passion and doing art. There is a place for you. There's going to be voices of doubt, and you just have to temper those voices with doubt and no, God created me as a creator. You are following your creator. You're following in his footsteps and mimicking him in creating something. So know that. The second thing is be creative and find your place. I've had to work at finding my place for years. I did a podcast and searched. I asked questions. And if this is something you're passionate about, if you're passionate about following God and you're passionate about art, you will find a way. And so use your creativity to find your place in this world. And ask questions, talk to people. Talk to Will.
Talk to Jason, don't talk to me.
But, and then I guess a third thing you can do, and this is a shameless plug, you can also come to the Art and Faith Festival.
Come to the Art and Faith Festival.
Art and Faith Festival on October 13th. At 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the marketplace. So, yeah, that's what you can do.
There's no shame here.
There's no shame.
In Christ, there is no condemnation for those who follow.
There we go.
Even if you're doing shameless plugs.
That's right. Okay.
All right. Well, Jason, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks.
And LeGrand Alive, thank you for tuning in. This has been The Second Pot with Jason Link, brought to you by Grand Ron Hospital, Northwest Furniture and Mattress, Anything 2 Digital, EONI, and Med Transport. Please like and share the video and tune in to next time for more local content. I'm Will Bowman.